Hello, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec Podcast, where I help you triple impact peer engineer and create a tech team worth leading. Our subject today is the Mousetrap, but before I get to that, I want to tell you about a new offering I've got. I've talked to over 100 tech leaders recently about their 2024 plans and got repeating requests to offer help with this. The way you kick off the year has the potential to set you up for remarkable success and propel you forward. To help you achieve that, I'm creating the Launchpad Propellent package for 366 because 2024 is a leap year. $366. You'll get prep work to consider, a planning session with me to come up with personal team goals for the next 3-ish months to crush the year, and weekly accountability support for the first month. That's easily 70% cheaper than I usually charge for similar stuff. So if you want to get in, there are limited seats. My email's in the show notes. Write to me and let's get started. And now let's talk about the Mousetrap. If you're on my newsletter, you know that we had a mouse issue at home a few weeks ago. And I'm not going to go into that. I'll just say that mice suck. However, one thing that I get out of it is my thinking about how we placed the mousetrap and the fact that it worked, and I want to share something about it with you. And first, I want to say I'm hoping I'm not turning into one of those LinkedIn cliches, as in how my toe getting stubbed taught me something about enterprise. But I want to talk specifically about this, and this is genuinely I thought I had. So I'm not trying to come up with all sorts of highfalutin stuff. This is genuinely what came to my mind. So we bought a mousetrap once we realized we had a mouse. And then I thought, the first level of our home is quite big and the mouse is quite small. So for the mouse, this is like a vast area. And I was considering how can placing one mousetrap can really catch it and fast. No, we didn't want to wait weeks to catch it. And I was thinking about it, I read a bit online and I realized that there are a few guidelines about what you need to do because first of all, turns out mice usually don't travel the open space. They tend to walk close to the walls and corners, etc., because they feel safer there. And if you place a mousetrap there, especially around a wall or a corner that's more in the middle of the house, there are increased chances that the mouse will go there. So we did that, and lucky enough, we caught the mouse within one night. So that worked. And then I thought about it and I realized that this is very similar to what I've been talking about a lot in my consulting with my clients, which is when I refer to the path of least resistance. We have to understand that each and every one of us, we have our comfort zones, we have our defaults, and you need to be aware of these. One side of why this is important is that if you are too comfortable, you're too ensconced within your comfort zone, it means that you need to break out of it. But today I want to talk about how you can leverage these comfort zones, this path of least resistance, where you know something is more likely to happen to create more value, to make your own life easier, to catch the mouse quicker. So in your life, I want you to consider how can you set the mousetrap correctly so you get your results faster? And I've got a few ideas that I thought about this morning to share with you. I want you to think about how can you use this to your advantage. So for example, let's say that you realize that you want to create a different sort of culture. You want to make something different happen in your organization. It would be a lot easier to do that after you decided to change the processes that you have in your company so that it would be people's path of least resistance to align with what you want. So for example, if you want people to communicate more, maybe start by creating the daily stand-ups and making sure that people actually join them. Once it's on the calendar, once everyone know they need to be there at a specific time, and if they're not there, they're going to get a Slack message from their boss, etc., you're more likely to create that sort of an environment. If you want to create a culture where product and engineering work together, perhaps, this is a crazy thought, make them work together in pods, in squads, whatever you want to call it, so they're in these cross-functional teams and working together, as opposed to having them have to work across organizational lines. This is setting the mousetrap so you get it. Another example I really like is having rigid one-on-one systems happening throughout the different ranks of your organization with skip levels and everything, because I always tell my clients, it might seem weird at first to have these one-on-ones, even if you don't know what you're going to talk about with the skip level or the skip of the skip of the skip level, depending on how big your organization is. I still believe that I used to say that this is setting up a platform. You are making space for people to talk up about things and speak up, and all of a sudden you hear things you wouldn't have heard otherwise. And this is precisely setting the mousetrap where it needs to be. You're getting them there, you're giving them the space to talk, they might as well talk about something, and you just might find out something worthwhile, right? These are examples of doing this when it comes to your processes. Another example is if you want people to focus, maybe set it up so that your organization by default is anti-useless meetings. So you can't invite more than one person to a meeting without having an agenda, without having prep work sent. So you're setting the mousetrap. You're making it so that if a meeting happens, it is a lot more likely to be a meeting that's worth being a meeting and not being replaced with an email, right? Make tougher decisions early on. So I would rather make tougher decisions when hiring people as opposed to having to fight with them day in, day out after I'm hiring them when they're already in the office. So this is, again, this concept of how can we do things while it is still easier? Because if at the decision of hiring someone, I make the right call and I'm not making my standards lower or compromising for the wrong things because right now it would be easier, it means that I'm setting the entire organization on the right path. And one last example is I want you to always think about the importance of aligning your team, right? This is something I keep going back to. We want to have a high impact team, and that means that every single one of your engineers needs to know how the company is working towards its goals, what the goals even are, how we can help the company get there, why it's important, the business logic behind it, etc. If you want to see your people align on it, you can make it a lot easier by sharing this context. And this is like magic. Just like setting a mousetrap with, a bit of good cheese that the mouse is going to come to. This is what I've seen countless times with companies. You feel like, I don't know, my best engineers keep talking about tech debt and about refactoring this and that thing they saw in Hacker News. And you feel like they're disconnected from what's really important, the business goals. And there's a very simple trick here, and that's share the context with them. That's it. Give them a bit of understanding about here's what we're doing, here's why. Share it in one meeting that is a good meeting. You already have the real context. It's not a bunch of decisions that's essentially a shopping list of features, but an actual strategy that maybe you came up with someone like me. And once you have that, once you share it, you'll see that like moth coming to a flame, your best engineers, your product-minded engineers, automatically will be forced to come and start thinking about these things. That's how their minds work. Yeah, you might have to work a bit harder with the engineers who just care about coding in Rust or whatever, but those product-minded ones are going to automatically start thinking about it. It's like when you're in the market for a new car and you start noticing all the different cars in the street just because your brain has been primed to notice that. When you give people the right context, that's setting an amazing mousetrap, because for those minds, they're going to be constantly aware of it. And you're going to see innovation come up that's connected to what you want to achieve, to business improvement, to users getting more value, and less to, hey, that's a new shiny thing I want to play with. So think about that, set a few critical mousetraps in the right locations, and you're going to reap a few rewards, and I hope you're not going to catch any mice. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining me. I'm reminding you two things. One, the Launchpad Propellent package. Check it out in the show notes below. And two, if you haven't yet, do subscribe to my newsletter. It's coming out every week. The link is in the show notes. And I do believe you're going to get some good stuff. For example, the last week's article pretty much blew up, and maybe I'll record a new episode about it soon. That's it. I'll be here next week.